In 3, 2, 1.
Welcome to the acclaimed podcast, The Deep Dive, featuring your esteemed hosts, Andy Monitor and Drew Dinzik, powered by BetSperts.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. I forgot to change the banner because I was asleep at the wheel. It's been one of those days. Thank you, Andy. All right, man. We're a week away from the draft. It's come so quickly, it feels like. And this is our third
of like
podcast?
five.
Third
I think
of
we're
five?
doing
Yeah.
it all next week too.
We'll do it next week too. Yeah.
It's fun.
Yeah. Third draft focused podcast, but here we are, an NFL podcast to our bones. And so the NFL draft, of course, is becoming more of a spectacular betting event, thanks in large part to our friends out in the desert at Circa. And in light of the fact that 1 week ago, I was bellyaching that there just were not enough options and no one would take a fair bet across the prop marketplace. And I want to say it was within 24, 48 hours, we see a tweet come across from the Circa account. Hey, here's 100 props and $1,000 limit. Have at it. And it was a breath of fresh air to really see someone take the initiative and, kind of really set some momentum into the marketplace, because since then we've really seen it explode across the industry. There's a lot of content now about it as well, on top of just, we're seeing more prices, more options, fun things to bet on. The yes-no props that Circa came out with recently were also a ton of fun in terms of what teams are going to bet on offense, defense, or positional groups, yes, no. And so with all of that, we've invited on, we talked to our friend Matt Metcalf over there and said, hey, you want to come on? We want to ask you about this process. And he pointed us in the direction of Mr. Dylan Sullivan. He said, this has been the brainchild of one of our new risk managers, Dylan Sullivan. You should have him on, give him the once over, give him the credit he's due, and ask him some questions about the process. So with that, without further ado, for the first time ever, welcome to the Deep Dive, Mr. Dylan Sullivan.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on. Great intro.
We haven't had a lot of people from the other side.
That's for sure.
I'm actually wondering, is this our first ever?
No, we had Lindemann on.
Lindemann counts for sure.
Yeah,
I forgot. I was going to say it was somebody last year. We had Lindy
right
on.
before the pandemic. We had Lindemann on.
It was right before everything shut down. But no, it's exciting to get a different perspective because we've had pro bettors, we've had just people who generally handicap things. But it's cool to read and listen to other interviews too from the other side of the counter. So it'll be fun to pepper you with questions all night.
Yeah. And honestly, full disclosure here. But I've been betting now for almost 20 years and done a lot of interesting things in the betting landscape. But without question, the biggest hole in my resume, I've never been behind the counter. There's a lot of things I don't understand about risk management and how that plays into everything. And so I think in general, like a lot of the spirit of what we want to ask you about, what we want to talk to you about today is kind of in that vein. How did you find your way into the risk management space? Is this something you went to college and said, I got a knack for this. I got a feeling for the risk, the old, the way to manage risk, or did you just love sports and, drive out to the desert and bang on the door until they gave you a job?
Yeah, it's more of the latter. I didn't go to college. I just kind of got random jobs out of high school. I moved here from Texas about 2 years ago. So, I didn't really have like a career path in Texas. And I've always been interested in sports betting. I've been doing it recreationally since I was like 14 probably. And I decided to come out here and try to work my way into this industry and see if they give me a shot. And I started at Circa a little over a year ago as a ticket writer and just worked my way from there.
That's missing on my resume too. I should one of these times I'm just gonna ask Motoy if he'll give me a job over at WinBet.
Write tickets for a couple days.
They'd hire us. I don't think they write a lot of tickets. It's not even they're not even connected to the win for some reason. I don't know, but I could be a ticket writer. I think I could do that job. That's about as far as I would want to go with it at first. I think that's easy peasy. You just yell at them about the rotation number and go from there.
Yeah, what's the training like for being a ticket writer? Did you have a sense of what that was like before you moved out there?
Somewhat. I mean, when I came in, I picked it up real easily. Nothing was more complex than you'd think if you've been betting for a while, I think. So I picked it up right away and kind of just tried to do a great job every day until Jeff would let me make my way to the back.
Nice.
Yeah, I think the hardest part of that job would probably be dealing with the people who come to the counter unprepared or with a bunch of questions. Like I've always ended up behind that person, or it's like I'm going in the next line over because this one's going to take forever. Otherwise, yeah, it's more of a customer service job. It's probably good to have to do that before you go in the back too, just so you know what you're like, how you're affecting those people up there once you start putting together those lines.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's important to do that at some point if you've never done it before, just so you can kind of know what's going on in the front and know what kind of problems or things can happen up there. But yeah, it's definitely a customer service thing, and obviously a lot of these people can test your patience. But overall, I enjoyed doing it as well.
When you kind of landed at Circa, did you have the understanding going in that these guys were going to try something semi novel, at least in Las Vegas, or at least kind of recapture a lost art, for lack of a better term, in terms of just, we're going to be aggressive writing action. We just want to write tickets. Like, we're going to hang numbers early. We're going to provide more of some insight into what's going on behind the scenes here with our power numbers. Like, they've been first to market now for college football for a while. And I guess, did you get a sense going in, like, yeah, this is something cool that, I'll get to see more, get to understand more of what it's like to be a true bookmaker than, a lot of other ticket writing opportunities would probably provide you.
Honestly, I wasn't that advanced. I really didn't know the difference of like what we're doing and what other shops are doing. So it was actually pretty lucky that I ended up here compared to somewhere else, I guess, because I didn't really know the industry on that level at the time. So I've definitely learned a lot in the last year, a couple months, but yeah, it's been great.
It's like the guy going looking for a job on an assembly line at any old automaker, and he ends up at Tesla. So good work there. Like, yeah, you nailed it. That worked out. So that's pretty cool too. And yeah, we're still, I don't know, the whole thing last year kind of ruined it for us, but we still will make it out to the swim thing. What's it called? The
swim.
Stadium swim.
Yeah. Stadium swim. Thank you.
I know that sucks that they put all that time and effort into that, and then the first year of it kind of ended up a little quashed. But eventually, we will be out there.
Yeah. What was it like this fall? Right. On the normal-ish NFL weekend that you guys had this fall.
I would say it was pretty steady, pretty busy. Over-the-counter action wasn't quite what you would expect it was, but everywhere is going to the app mostly now anyways. So watching the bet ticker on an NFL Sunday an hour before the game, it's just nonstop. So it was good.
Okay. Can you provide people a little bit of insight, given what you understand about being behind the counter? We talked about this on Monday, trying to dispel some of the myths of reverse line movement. It's fair to say that really the entire point of price discovery and putting your lineup early and taking big bets early is getting to the point where you have the correct line come Sunday morning when all that action really starts flying. That's effectively the name of the game, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
All right. So even if you know what percent of the tickets or what percentage of the money is on any given side, it doesn't change the fact that any bet made on Sunday morning, from the bookmaker's perspective, you're saying you're betting a coin flip with a minus 110 price.
Yeah, that's pretty much how books stand.
Okay, thank you for fulfilling our closing the loop on our Monday episode there. Anyway. What got you into draft props? Were you a college football guy? And I guess, and when you were originally betting back in the day, mostly football, mostly college, some NFL, a little bit of both.
Actually, I probably am more familiar with the NFL than college football. but I think it kind of ties in with draft props. I think the NFL draft it might be more important to know the NFL situations than how good these college players are, because I'm not a scout. It's more important to know what NFL teams tend to do, what kind of draft assets they have, what are their biggest needs, things like that, and then you can kind of figure out what level these prospects are on from looking at other people's work in a way.
The biggest fly in the ointment, and kind of the argument that, I mean, Drew, you had this argument on Twitter with some people, and it's why offer these? Because a big part of the argument, the counter argument to what Drew was saying was like, Joe Schmo isn't going to come up here and bet some of these down the board draft props. Like, you're not going to get a ton of public action on maybe stuff outside of top 10 players. Like, this is going to get hit by sharp bettors. And if you're offering a decent limit on something like this, like, what advantage is that to a book? Like, a book should get killed on these, essentially. If not killed, but like, it shouldn't be as advantageous as the major market stuff, as, an NFL Sunday where the public comes in and just dumps money at a 5% hold. So, I mean, why?
So originally I kind of just asked what we were doing for draft props this year, and nobody, our sportsbook manager, Chris Bennett, he said, my hands are kind of full right now, so I might get to it in a week or so. If you want to like get ahead of it, then go for it. So I kind of asked him, I honestly didn't know how to do this stuff. So I asked him some of the stuff that he did last year and kind of looked at some of our old numbers from last year, saw what people were betting, saw how he came up with some of his numbers. And I was going to offer a similar menu to last year. And then like a day or two before we opened them, Matt Metcalf said, I'm in favor of having a market on any player that people know of. So, so I was like, sweet.
Awesome.
So I started digging through prospects, looking at big names, obviously a lot of position players like wide receiver, quarterback. Those are the more popular ones. And I came up with a list of 100 guys, and I said, is this cool? And he said, yeah. So I started putting some numbers together, and we opened them up last Saturday. I
love it. Do you feel like as you've seen bets come in, because again, my thesis was always like, yeah, it's a loss leader though, right? Like get people in the door, get them betting again. Like there's a lot of people out there that really only care about football. They haven't scratched the itch since the Super Bowl. Like get them in the door, get them betting again. They'll roll some of these winnings into, futures propositions, game of the year stuff when that comes out, in a couple weeks. Like, it definitely helps start the cycle. And on top of that, like I figured, hey, but you might get a bunch of action day of. People are probably going to go down to the book and watch the draft. Like there's going to be some people that show up on Thursday and make bets. Like put numbers out there, get the price discovery out of the way, take some action, move the numbers, land in the right spots. And then on Thursday, you might get a decent proportion of the overall action, and then, presumably a ton of that is plus EV for the book. I guess, what would you guess right now the split's going to be in terms of tickets you've written so far in the price discovery phase versus what you're going to do in the last 24, 48 hours?
Well, unfortunately, Nevada Gaming makes us close all the props 24 hours before the draft starts.
Oh! It's better than Iowa Gaming.
So yeah, we have to close on Wednesday at 5 p.m., but I'm hoping Monday through Wednesday next week is going to
be
kind of pick it up as far as the recreational action. But I still think even if that kind of goes favorably for us, we're still going to have definitely more sharp dollars on the props overall.
Okay.
Yeah, I drove to Iowa today to realize that they still hadn't changed anything from last year. I'm like, oh yeah, I couldn't bet this last year. I got a bunch of apps open. I'm like, God damn it! It's 25 minutes one way. I was kind of pissed, but that was what my afternoon was. So I understand you do need a little more. I'm never pro regulation, but I can understand this one, because it's an informational thing rather than a game that's played on a field later on. So I'm fine with it. I'm not fine with the fact that like Pennsylvania, Iowa, some other states aren't letting them bet on this at all. But I guess I'm okay with that. It does kind of suck for your handle though, because Thursday you would kill it.
Yeah, but part of me is glad because you're just staring in front of Twitter on Thursday if that's the case, and it's going to be the same Wednesday.
It's a little bit of protect you a little bit in some sense, because stuff does leak the last 24 hours. There's some leaks for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, that's what we'll be doing too.
I'm not gonna be worried about my risk management though. That's for damn sure. Okay,
God, no.
I guess if you step back and kind of think about the way the market's been structured early on, there were lines up on first player drafted was Lawrence. Everybody knew it. I doubt they were writing much action. You don't want to lock up huge prices for months as you wait for the draft to come around. But we did see that's true. We did see some stuff like Zach Wilson opened up -150, -175 back in the February timeframe, and as kind of consensus became that he was going to be the number 2 overall to the Jets, that's drifted out to like -5,000. You taken any action against that as the number 2 overall pick? Because I guess we think it's consensus that the Jets are taking Wilson too, but I mean, should it be more than 95%?
It's the Super Bowl safety bet. Like if public walks in, they're like, well, I'll take the other side of that, because they see the big number.
Right. Well, I actually didn't even bother putting up Trevor Lawrence or Zach Wilson because there's nothing I could find that suggested there was any other options that those two teams are going to take. So I didn't want to waste two of the 100 spots on sure things, and I'd either be handing out free money, or if we get scooped that Zach Wilson got in a car accident or something, then we're handing out free money the other way. I just didn't think it was really worth it. That
was pretty sharp. So then everything comes down to number 3 with San Francisco and who they take at quarterback. There are some sharp offshores that were taking $1,000 a pop on that, and they took that down and did not rehang it in terms of the 3rd overall market. In fact, the most you can get down anywhere online in a Justin Fields or a Mac Jones bet is about $250. Although you could hit both, you could hit multiple skins. Obviously, you can get more down if you really care about it. But there's really not a big market for Justin Fields. But you guys are taking some bets, and it's been an interesting market cycle here for Fields. Over 3.5 is now down to is up to -220. So there's some pretty serious momentum and some people in the market who are buying into this. Is potentially an uncertain pick. This is not Fields to San Francisco. I'm on the other side of that in a lot of ways, the way that I've allocated my capital. But I guess, are you seeing any 2-way action there, or is this mostly one way? Fields is going to slide out of that 3 slot.
It's mostly one way that he's going to slide out. We have gotten a handful of bets back on the under, but I think from watching the market, those are just scalpers betting off of other books. So it doesn't seem like too many people have that opinion that he's going to go number 3 overall at this point. But it's like a constant conversation in the room. Like that, if it keeps moving, we're going to have to probably take all 3 of those quarterbacks down and reevaluate the way we want to hang their numbers.
Yeah. But, any echoes from just the fact that there were times you could get a bigger number on Fields to go through it overall, and that there might be some people playing an arbitrage here?
Well, when I didn't look at any other shops when I made my numbers. Sure. But I did look before I actually opened them, just because I wanted to be aware of possible scalps and what kind of action to expect based on the current market. So I knew we were going to get some Fields bets right away, just because I think market was like -140, -160 for him to go 3rd overall. And we hung like a +160, I think. So I anticipated a little bit. I didn't think we'd get quite as much as we got. But on the other hand, we're not getting any under bets on Lance or Jones really at this point. So I don't think anyone really knows, and no one wants to just throw darts right now. They're kind of just sticking around waiting to see if any news breaks out.
What you said there too about taking those markets down, reevaluating how you want to hang them, that was a question I really wanted to get to. And maybe it's a little more useful if we talk about some of the guys who are down the board, day 2, day 3 guys, some of your 100 that are, obviously not going on day 1. And that gets even trickier too, because there can be so many trades and so much can go on. But, NFL side, you have to move an NFL side. You index it, finally, you're going to have to move it a half point. Like it's getting bumped. You're moving in a half point because that's how it works. With this, it's not it's not the same way. Like, well, if this lineman keeps moving to the over, we can't just move him like a half spot or up one spot. Like that next team has no interest in a lineman or, something along those lines. Is that kind of what you're talking about with those quarterbacks? Like the 3.5 numbers might have to just go out the window and all of a sudden we open it up at a 5.5 minus 50 or something.
Right. I think if I get to the point that we have to close them and reopen them in a different form, I would do it in a form of a matchup with each other instead of an over-under.
Ooh. What about one market that is a trifecta? Basically, correct order of these three.
I've thought about that as well.
You can hang 6. You got 6 options. You build a little bit more.
We should create some markets tonight. Yeah, let's do this.
Yeah, that'd be.
I do think I've seen that one out there. I don't remember what book it was with, but
yeah,
I think I've seen that one. That one's pretty intriguing.
I've seen mocks with every combination.
There's a couple that have done like custom bets, and I feel like people are getting jobbed on those because you don't get to really see the math unless you take it apart and do it. And it's kind of like those same game parlays. Like people, look at how big this number is. Like, yeah, you're probably getting like really jobbed on that number. But they have had. I've seen some of those like books have let you do a custom bet where somebody picked like the first 6 in order and mashed it all together. And I forget what it paid, but it certainly wasn't enough for me.
Yeah.
Right. I'd like the trifecta one, like the quarterback trifecta one. Take out the first 2. Like get rid of, same like you did. Get rid of Wilson, get rid of Trevor, and then take the next 3 quarterbacks. What order do they go in? I like that a lot. That should happen.
Yeah,
I'll fly out. Oh yeah, and I remember this. People had this last year. Ruggs, Judy.
Oh yeah.
Like, we were betting that did not go. That did not go how anybody.
I did not have it. Go. That was probably the long shot of the orders. That was definitely the long shot of the orders. Okay, so I don't know. I'm still. I mean, at this point, I'm talked out on the field's third. But like the idea that the Niners have told, I'm going to be on a podcast with freaking Lombardi tomorrow. I gotta probably choose my delivery somewhat carefully because I don't want to like just completely either embarrass myself or embarrass him.
How wrong
but like the idea that anyone knows 90% is tough for me to swallow just because San Francisco was so smooth at disinformation the last couple of draft cycles. The fact that some people think like, oh, they haven't made their decision. I think that's they have, but I don't think anyone really knows, but we'll see. Anyway, it's funny too, because it's such a pivotal position in the draft. Obviously, if Fields is available at 4, there's more incentive for teams to trade up to the Atlanta slot. However, I guess it's another tough one because what do you guys have Pitts at right now? 4.5, 5,
5.5 juiced
5.5 juiced under. Yeah. Are you that feels like one that the house might lose on?
We're actually pretty split on that one. I think that's
really
that's one of the props that we're getting 2-way on that we're actually earning too.
Interesting. So somebody out there is postulating to go over 5.5. What has to happen is Jones has to go 3, Fields has to get traded up into for 4, or Atlanta has to take a QB.
I think the most likely scenario for him to slip past 5 is someone trading up for a quarterback at 4.
Yeah,
and Cincinnati probably taking the tackle at 5.
Yeah, tackle or chase, I guess, that gives Pitts to the Dolphins, which would be wild. That would hurt me. I gotta say, I have a lot of Pitts.
I don't like anything about that.
We're talking. I need to prepare myself for a bad draft. I think after last year, almost every single freaking thing broke my way. It's regression. This could be a regression season for me with the draft. I need to start.
Especially, there's a lot of things that are going to happen later in the first round that I feel like we're in really good spots for. But there's like a 10-minute time frame of 3, 4, 5 that could be just an absolute backbreaker for us. Like it's just that little window. Like,
last year was like that too. If the Lions
receivers
had taken Tua, people were saying like Lions are serious. They might take Tua. If Tua had gone 3 last year, I would have been wiped. They would wipe the floor with me last year. Okay. Anyway, draft betting is fun because it is there's so much information, there's so much disinformation out there, and you read things that confirm your bias or go against it, and it just spins you emotionally. Anyway, this is all good stuff. What is your current feel? What does the market feel about Cincinnati at 5? Does it 50-50 right now between Chase and, I guess we're assuming Sewell, but a tackle?
Yeah, I think the consensus is probably Sewell, but it's not strong enough that it's like a lock. I think his number is juiced over 5.5 right now as well. So there's a lot of possibilities there, but I think if you put 30 mock drafts together, Sewell is the number one consensus.
Have you seen much movement on that's something we were talking about earlier today, is the Slater market. Like and this is the thing, like we run into this so much this time of year, especially like basically like which Twitter accounts are full of shit. And like which reporters are just going to say whatever somebody gives them, no matter if it holds any water whatsoever. But I mean, there has been a lot of Slater talk, and there's been a lot of, this team likes Slater better than Sewell, and Sewell sat out and Slater played well, and I don't know if there's enough smoke to make fire there. But like, have you seen a lot? I guess have you guys had to move that one?
Yeah, we actually have moved it over, under. I tried to open him low because I didn't want under bets on him, actually, because historically the tackles, even if they're unexpected, one of the tackles is going to slide to the top 10 probably, and he's the most likely one. But yeah, we took a few under bets on him that I wasn't looking for, and that's kind of where we're at right now, but not a whole lot of action.
Yeah. Here's why tackles always surprise to the under. It's because it's a safe pick if you're a GM and you don't want to get fired. Because number one, you're like, this guy's going to take a couple years to develop, so I don't really deserve the criticism for taking him, and he didn't work out year one, and then year two, he's like, he's playing pretty good. Yeah, it's like, it buys you more time at your job if you take a top tackle, and so fundamentally it's a safer pick. You're like, we got all this invested in this quarterback. We want to keep him upright. He only plays good when he's when he's got a clean pocket. Like this is gonna have dividends for our whole team. Yeah, but
and they can point at this year's class too, and like look at Wirfs and Wills and whoever the guy is up in New York. Yeah. God, who was he? Andrew Thompson. He played
Andrew Thomas. Yeah,
Thomas. That's what it was. So bad. I'm like, that's such a bust. And I mean, all of those guys played better at the end of the year than they did at the beginning of the year. You could go point to that and be like, look what tackles have done historically if you take them high. And honestly, we were surprised last year at how many tackles didn't go in the top 10. Like we were kind of. Yeah. We were thinking, there's going to be a glut of these in the teens now. And of course there were, and it was probably a good thing for Cleveland. They ended up getting second pick on tackles. That was better than anything they could have expected.
Let's stay on Slater for a minute here, because you did something interesting. You put him at a flat 10, and it is still juiced to the under, minus 175 to the under 10. I think that was pretty shrewd for a couple of reasons. Number one, you look around the betting landscape and like, why would you come here and bet under 10 when you can go there and get 11.5 or, get, I think there's some places that, I think he's 12.5 somewhere too. Although I don't see how the Giants take a tackle, but maybe they do. But 10 is an interesting one.
It's a dead number at 12.
It's, but yeah,
there could be trades. You don't know.
Yeah, I guess that's not crazy. But what goes into the decision to actually move the index itself as opposed to just the juice? And then I guess, and then I'm curious, Andy, I told you this, the biggest bets that I've made this week have all been Slater bets. I'm under on Slater all over the place at pretty juicy numbers now. I guess what went into the thought process of moving him to 10? And could you see him go even lower to say 8.5? I mean, there was a pretty reliable Denver Broncos guy that was saying Slater, they had eyes for Slater at 9. Could you see this continue to drift?
Yeah, possibly. Like I said, we're moving pretty aggressive with every bet, like every limit bet from a sharp guy that comes in. And it's a pretty new experience to me and most of the people back there. So we're kind of learning as we go. We don't have like an exact science to this, but anyone inside like the top 10, I'm really trying to stay on numbers and not skip numbers to get middle opportunities. So I just felt like it was the right move to 10 flat and juice the under, because you never know. The Cowboys, their offensive line at 10 is struggling. Like
no one has said this, but you're so right. Yes.
Well, everybody's been saying, it's been cornerback for a year. But if things don't go out right and maybe somebody else jumps up or there's a defensive player taken before that, like the Cowboys have a few different needs. That wouldn't hurt. So that would be interesting. That would really throw a lot of wrenches into like the Eagles pick and a few other things. That would be super. I kind of want that to happen now.
I mean,
it would work out for me.
Okay. Now, again, we've been over this a billion times. Bookmakers don't lay traps, but Surtain at 10.5, even flat juice, that's a trap. Right? Like, honestly, if you look at like any of the kind of the draft aggregating sites, because there's a shitload of them now that aggregate all these mock drafts, and you look at them and you're like, what's consensus across the expert landscape, right? And it's like 99% Lawrence 1, 95% Wilson 2, and then it's 30% or 40% for everything, and then you get to 10, and it's like, 80% have Surtain going 10 to the Cowboys, and it's like, has Jerry Jones been on TV like beating his chest saying that Surtain is the next great cornerback? Like how in the world are we connecting these dots here? Is because presumably they could have eyes for Horn at cornerback. They could have eyes for a different position. They might want a pass rusher. Who the hell knows? Cornerbacks do not make an immediate impact in the NFL. We know this now. Everyone knows this. Jerry Jones knows this. He's drafted a couple of cornerbacks early in drafts, and that didn't make an impact in their first and second years. He let Claiborne go. He let Byron Jones go via free agency. He's been through to this rodeo. He may choose pass rusher. I guess, have you seen one-way action and not move the number on Surtain under 10.5?
Well, first of all, I don't know how to set a trap. I'm not that smart. I'm kind of hanging things.
We're gonna have to clip this part to convince people.
But I mean, I think I hung 10.5, and the Cowboys are a popular mock draft spot for him. But I don't want to get stuck on something like that. So I mean, if you think the Cowboys are going to take him, it's a coin flip. And if you don't think the Cowboys are going to take him, maybe the Panthers at 8. I've seen that in a couple mock drafts, or maybe the Broncos. I don't know, but I just think there's a lot of variance that these mock drafts get comfortable with something like that makes sense to them, and they get lazy and they just want to move on to the next one and do something crazy.
I think that's well said.
And a lot of things happen in the 6, 7, 8, 9 spots. If anything weird happens there, you can see Surtain.
Cowboys could trade out. Yeah, somebody might go up to that spot for a quarterback. Why not?
I really think he might end up being an Eagle, just because I would love. That seems like the one that everybody bet. Like, we're betting. It's going to the Cowboys. Like everybody on Twitter has this bet already. I'm like, I'd kind of like to see that one blow up a little.
I wouldn't be crying about that one. Yeah, I wouldn't. No,
I'm fine with that. I have some horn top corners, so I'd like that as well.
I have some horn top defender. That would be.
It was like 8 or 10 to 1 on that. So that was he's going.
I guess so. Does coming up with a number like 10.5 for Surtain, that plays more into your evaluation of the Cowboys' needs, right?
Yeah, somewhat. I mean, okay. I don't want to get stuck on a mock draft at 10 when. When it's the top 5 or 6 guys, it seems like it's pretty made up until something crazy happens. But you never see the mock drafts stay accurate after that, really.
Have the Detroit Lions been the toughest team for you to pin down as well in the top 10?
They have
for the second straight year,
right? Because they need every single position. They're a trade prospect. They could trade up. They could trade down. You just have no idea what they're going to do. I think wide receiver was a popular mock draft for them. But
hey, when you look at their depth chart, you can't help but think they're going to end up with some wide receiver in this draft, maybe too.
Yeah.
Right. And I saw a lot of Devontae Smith to them, a lot of Jalen Waddle, and you see their totals at 11.5. So I don't know. I tried not to get too lenient or leaned on a position that they could be taken. I'm trying to just stay open and let the bettors tell me where to go with that one.
That's probably the. I still have not made up my mind on that. And all the things you mentioned about Detroit being a trade candidate, having the roster that they do, and needing multiple positions. Like, we didn't even get to. They might have a questionable front office based off their coaching hire. Like, they might just not be that smart. So, like, they could be a complete wild card at this point. So I think most of the mocks, the mocks are very split on this, but a lot of it is Smith, Chase, Waddle. I've seen a few with Penny Sewell. I guess doesn't hurt. They could use everything. Like, there's even mocks that have them taking a quarterback, which, again, I'm fine with that too. You could use anything like that. So I think we talk about 3, 4, 5 being so pivotal. Detroit's might truly be the pivotal one when they just make some wild ass pick. And
I like a prop on them though. Will Lyons' first pick be a wide receiver? Yes, no. -125 to the no.
Yeah, so I did
might
go
have
with
my name
wide
on
receiver there, but I'm not. Like I said, I'm not stuck on it at all.
Okay. I like it. Is there a pick or a prop that's aimed at the top 10 that you were expecting to see lots of action on, and it's just been kind of ignored or kind of overlooked?
One of the guys that I've kind of seen all over is Micah Parsons, the linebacker.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen him go as high as 7 or 8 to I think the Panthers or Broncos are pretty popular destinations for him. And then I see him slide all the way to 20, 18. So, yeah, I hung him, I think, 11.5. I think we got an overbet. And it hasn't got a whole lot of action since then. I thought that would be a pretty opinionated one.
Interesting.
It kind of has been just in the Twitter sphere. Like, there's been plenty of talking heads talking about him falling. I would have thought you would taken more over bets on that, especially at that number. We've seen that one bumper. And just the scuttlebutt. We're not quite to that point. We're finally at like the week before. This is when you get the reports like, oh, this is kind of a character guy. Like, I'm hearing that from inside this war room. He might have some maturity issues, or like the surprise injury like 5 days before too, or somebody has epilepsy. Christ's sakes, like it's just like there's always something like that they throw at us a week out. Like, what are we doing? Nobody knew about this before.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Hopefully he's fine.
Yeah.
I saw Rappaport come across my Twitter timeline today saying Justin Fields has epilepsy, and I was like, shit. I had to pull all the quarterbacks until I figured out if this was like news or if I'm just now seeing it. But
if it came from Rappaport, it's FUD. It's FUD. That's my opinion personally.
Yeah,
and not just because it's about Fields. Okay. Have you moved so you're actively moving the market then based on your own kind of curating of news and information?
Somewhat. I'm trying not to move too many things around, but like, for example, Terrace Chase what's his name? Terrace Marshall.
The second wide receiver. Yeah. Yep. The wide receiver from
they,
LSU, Marshall. Yeah.
Now they say he has medical issues, so he was a popular overbet today. He was a popular underbet a couple days ago, so that's another one that we've got pretty decent two-way. We have a decent chance to get middled there, or you could soar to the third round. You never know.
Yeah. Interesting.
So you're saying, like, if the news was important enough, you'd move on air. Or you'd move on the news, rather you wouldn't have to take a bet if news was big enough on an injury, or would you still just put it back up and let the market decide?
Kind of both. If it's something major like a Laramie Tunsil situation, maybe I think I would just pull it, and I don't even know if I'd put it back up. But
that's probably the right move.
Just close it.
Yep. We're done with him.
Yeah, we're done.
We'll see how it goes.
That's interesting.
But like, for example, Marshall today, obviously the bettors are usually going to get the news before we do. So I see 2 guys bet him over after he'd been a popular under thing, and you instantly know something just broke, or someone gave it out as a play or something. So sure enough, I checked Twitter and he has medical issues, and so I inched him up a little bit more. But and then Devontae Smith today, he was a popular one because he weighed in at
166 pounds. 66 pounds.
So I moved him up on air and still got an overbet, so I felt good about that.
Nice. That's interesting. This is fascinating.
Yeah, it would have to be like if there was big news like that, and there's always stuff that comes out, like you know what you're going to take. That is interesting though, that you can like what's going to go in your Twitter search bar based on the last 3 bets you took. Like,
Yeah,
I just got like 3 limit bets on one guy on the same side. I need to quick do a Google News on this guy.
Do you wait for 2, or do you after every limit bet that comes through, or you kind of just keep it in one thing?
I don't really check Twitter on every bet like that, but
Sure.
if I do get 2 or 3 bets on the same guy, then I'm going to try to find out why they're doing it or where this news is coming from. Because it's all definitely correlated when the market's been open for 3 or 4 days and 2 guys bet it within 5 minutes.
Do you ever do any butterfly effect stuff on something like the Marshall news? Because if you're getting 2 limit bets that Marshall might slide, presumably Bateman may go up. Right? Like there may be a priority now on whoever that 4th wide receiver is. You're starting to crystallize Bateman might be number 4, right? Like potentially that one might be. Do you ever do a butterfly effect or balancing like that across positional players?
I did with Bateman today, actually. I moved him small, maybe 1 spot. And then same with the quarterback situation. When we got all these Fields bets, I started juicing the other guys under a little bit. So things that I know are very correlated like that, I'll try to like kind of take a shot and make the right move on air, but those are 2 pretty specific situations. I can't really think of another one that I would do that on right now.
That gets tricky. That's almost like delving into the world of managing a future book. And I can't remember who I heard on a podcast talking about it. It might have been like maybe just somebody was talking, or an interview with like Jeff Davis or somebody was talking about future books and like what a pain in the ass that is compared to just like a 2-way market when you, especially training somebody else to figure that out. Because like what Drew said there's things, if you move something, you almost have to move something else in a book like that, unless you're just going to be an asshole and increase the hold, which obviously you guys are pretty famous for going the other direction with that. But yeah, I mean, we've seen that in a lot of preseason NFL markets where some offshores that we won't name, like their hold just goes one direction on MVPs. I can't remember, the 2 guys got bet to beat the band in MVP and nobody else changed. Like, well, your hold just went up like 10%. Like, this sucks. I'm betting this now, but it is interesting because you can't do that on everything. But I suppose when you do have some correlated things, like there's going to be 4 receivers, probably 5 in the first round. If somebody falls, somebody's got to backfill there. Otherwise, things get real weird.
I like it.
Yeah. Yeah, we're actually really big on raising our hold from another guy as soon as we lower a guy, because, I mean, Metcalf has kind of taught me that it's the only way to get off liability is to take a bet on another guy. So if I take a bet on one guy, you raise the next guy and try to get extra action. And that's what the hold does, is kind of gets you your earn off of that.
I like it.
You see all the shops in town, like you guys said, golf is a big one.
Oh,
all the favorites will get tanked down on Monday morning, and then no one else gets raised by Wednesday. So it's like, who's going to bet at this place after that?
Yeah, I mean, they go from a 30% to like a 45% over the course of a week in a golf tournament. It's like, well, shit, that's like you have to be early, and then if you're early, you don't have as much information. It kind of takes the starch out of it. And
right.
Golf's a really good example for that, because that's so tough. There's guys that just get hammered on Monday and you see them move. Even at some of the offshores I respect, there's some movement you don't see the other direction sometimes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there are a couple of interesting specific props that we'll give you. You've given us all this free time. We'll give you some free alpha at the end of this, of a couple that are going to go one way or the other. But a key question I guess I have for you. Let's say, there are a couple of mock drafters across the space that have more connections, more insight, better information, period. Right. And bettors will take action depending on who they slot where. Right. Daniel Jeremiah is good, is probably a guy that comes to mind from his mock drafts last couple of years. I've seen that get posted and numbers will start moving. Similarly, Pete Schrager, when he's his mock drafts early are kind of blah, but then they get good, like right at the end. Do you have a sense of when those guys are going to release their information? Are you got Google alert, like, hey, this article just got posted. Let's see how this is different, because you want to be able to anticipate information or anticipate action, or anything that any mock drafter has to say is just, we get to write more bets. Let's go.
Yeah, I try not to listen to anyone in particular until there's some sort of consensus. So yeah, I mean, I've looked at every mock draft in the world probably in the last 2 weeks. So every morning I'll check Google and see who came up with the mock draft today. But it's not like high on my priority list. So if I see a guy get bet under, then I go look at a mock draft that came out today from one of those popular guys, and sure enough, all of a sudden Travis Etienne, whatever his name is in the first round. I'm like, oh, okay, that's probably why these guys are betting him under.
I like it. Have you got some sort of consensus or like get a feel for what the sharper players are using as sort of their weather vane this season? I saw a lot of, how many times was the Athletic big board passed around today, Andy? I saw
a lot, yeah.
I saw,
and that's the thing too. There are some that just like come out, like especially a week ago or even further out, where it's like, this is truly not what they believe. This is horse shit on paper. They've put this out to get clicks. They've put this out to get. They love to get quote tweeted and say like, "Oh, this asshole says this guy's going third." Like that's just more clicks, more exposure. Like that's the mocks of like 2 weeks ago. Like we're finally getting into the area where like the Schrager stuff and some of the other ones are a little more crystallized based off actual insider knowledge, actual connections to some people within teams. Like, so some of these moves that you're seeing now, do you think that affects the betting? I don't even want to say the betting public, because I don't know how much real public money you're taking this far out. I know you'd say you're getting a lot of limit bets. I kind of imagine that's not all public money. But yeah. I mean, do you think some of these mocks, do you ever see these affecting like your betting clientele right now?
I think they definitely are. I'm not following them as closely as I probably should be, but there's like every day there's a couple guys that like several guys will try to bet, so they're all getting the same info. And I don't know if it's a mock draft or if there's a sharp guy giving out plays or info, or I'm trying to follow it, but like I said, I'm not going to move a guy in there because a new mock draft came out, so I kind of let the bets come in first.
Are you guys taking full limit on the app too?
Yes.
Or are these all counter bets? So
yeah.
So you're mostly getting app bets or what?
Yeah, for the most part. We get a lot of random guys that we've never heard of coming through for the counter, and like when you have a guy you've never heard of placing a limit bet on the NFL draft over the counter, you kind of have to treat it like a sharp bet, just because it's not like anyone. You have to be a sharp sports bettor to know NFL information like that. So
sure,
if he gets resistance, then good for us. But if it keeps going, then that guy probably had some good info, and you just got to respect the money.
Yeah. Yeah, it's different than some guy with a bunch of money being there for the rodeo and betting the NFL that weekend, like putting $1,000 on the Cowboys, but like, well, look at his boots, he's from Dallas. Like, right. It's a way different $1,000 bet. So yeah, I guess that makes a ton of sense, even if it is some rando.
That's a good point. It's been 4 days since you guys hung the 100 at 1,000 limits.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Okay.
Wednesday. So yeah,
not even that much time, and some of these have moved a lot.
Oh yeah.
Is there one that you wish you could have back? And why is it Farley 14.5?
That one. That's not even the worst one at all.
Wow.
I would say the one that we've moved the most by percentage and total numbers is definitely Davis Mills, the quarterback from Stanford. We opened him at like 140.5, and he's down to 60.5. So he's been
Never
most popular.
Never heard of him.
You might be fine on that.
I think you might be. Honestly, I mean, there was like one whiff of like, the Bucks are kind of interested in him, which means he could go 32 or 64. Or
they re-signed that guy that held Brady back when he was all fucked up. Like the other quarterback.
Blaine Gabbert is back, right?
I think they have a full quarterback room. Honestly, the quarterback market, and we've talked to a couple people about this, it could be real ugly after the first few. Like maybe a real barren day 2. So that'd be good for you. Yeah. What was the other one that dropped big? Trying to think besides
Kellen Mond.
Oh yeah. We had talked about him a little during the season, and then we kind of watched him play and like, oh Christ, like we're not good evaluators of college quarterbacks as it is.
Yeah.
I was a really big Josh Rosen guy, so I've just kind of retired off that. I'll just continue to use that as my reason for retiring. But and things can still get weird. What was Baker to go number one like a week before the draft?
20 to 1, 20 to 25 to 1. Yeah. No, I quarterback evaluation is so it's laughable because so much of it boils down to situation, in my opinion. I mean, talent is 50% of the name of the game, but the other 50% is where you land and how that team, how those offensive offensive minds can develop you as a player and prepare you for the pro level. Like, I mean, there's a reason that Tom Brady went in the 6th round. Like, he didn't have the physical tools, but he gets paired with a guy as smart as Belichick and some of the other offensive minds that came through the Patriot system, and the rest is history. So,
and his dietitian.
Yeah, right. Well, Alex Guerrero is a very, very capable guy, I guess we'll say. Okay, so so the only one you wish you could add, or the one you wish you could add back the most, would be Mills, you think?
He's the most one-sided, and that's moved the most and has the most money on one side. But Kellen Mond is in the same area. I don't necessarily regret opening him that high. I mean, I probably could have opened him a little lower, but I think the range that they're bet down to right now, I would much rather have the under money than the over money.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm with Andy. I think quarterback class is soft this year. There's a lot of good, capable backups out there, and yeah, I have a tough time seeing teams really reaching in the 3rd, 4th round, especially because the defense, because of just the way that the draft is this year. Like, there's so many good, legit round 1 talents on offense, not many on defense. So there's going to be a lot of incentive to just fire away on defensive players in rounds 2 and 3 and just hope you get lucky. Like, that seems like that's the whiff I'm getting, at least. And I mean, just the fact that the over under on offensive players is up to 18.5 is, I think, indicative of that. Okay. Are there any bets where you feel like you guys have pretty clearly already taken the players' money?
Where are you going to clean up?
Yeah, what's Thursday? The cleanup bet? What's the cleanup bet? What's the opposite of the Caleb Farley bet?
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not confident enough to tell you that we're going to win on any of these. Otherwise, I wouldn't move them.
That's fair. Yeah, we kind of put you in a box there. That was a bad thing. You can answer that question in a week. You can tell us. You can announce it like we killed some people on this one. It's going to be painfully apparent. Like, somebody's going to go in a weird spot and be like, oh boy, like that went, it went from like 14 to 10 to 12 or something, and he goes like 26. Like, there's going to be a few there. I mean, there's a limited number of spots. Somebody said this to us the other day in a chat we were having. He's like, I realized something last year. He's like, I had bet so many unders. It's like, Christ, they can't all go top 15. This is just, there's, I bet too many players. Like, literally there's a finite amount of spots. So I wonder too, you could probably shade things a little that way, especially in the 1st round.
Yeah. I'm going to make a bold prediction that you are going to clean up on unders in general. Any player that you are tilted to the under, I think, is a good bet for the house in general, because as Andy mentioned, I think people have a tendency to zero in on a player. They're like, this guy's going to be a great pro. I know it. I've heard people are buzzing about him. He's going to get picked earlier than people realize. But there's only so many slots, and
every weird pick you get, like what you're cheering for, especially if you are overweight on some unders.
Yeah,
like every time somebody does like a 3rd round kicker. Or anything
or Mayock takes Cleveland Farrell 4th overall.
Right.
Not only is it like good, it's correlated good for every single under you have from there on out. Like, oh man, somebody just reached like 2 or 3 people. Like, somebody just took a punter. Everything's coming up, Dylan.
And you know what else? This year there is less clear stratification than any other year we've ever been doing this, because there has been less consensus building through the process of Indy Combine. Yeah. And there are, for sure, although I can tell you this, and I'm sorry to bust this bubble for you, Seattle doesn't have a first round pick, so you lost one of your potential just totally insane wild card first rounders. Sorry. But in general, there's going to be the Seattle type stuff that happens where a guy no one's ever heard of goes in the first round, and every one of those that you get is going to be pretty advantageous, I think, for the house, which is pretty fun. So, okay.
Yeah, I totally agree.
As things stand, we'll wrap up here. Thank you for your time. But as things stand today, what is a realistic sort of best outcome for you guys in just sort of the top 6?
As it stands right now, I think we definitely want Fields to go 3.
We're with the house.
I think it would be good for us if someone trades up for a quarterback and kind of gets some dominoes falling and some weird things happening, because there's so much consensus on like the Sewell, Pitts, Chase guys that we're going to have a liability on all those guys to go where they're expected to go. Sure. So I think just anything weird happening after 4 or 5 would be good for us. And then, like you said,
a quarterback at 4 would crush one of the 3 unders that you're going to be exposed on 4, 5, 6. So you automatically win one.
And you probably have some overexposure on Mac at 9. That's a big. Although I got to tell you, man, that caught my attention right away, because I got to tell you, Mac over 9 is plus 230. That is asking for a bet. It really is, because
nobody wants it.
No, I can't believe that. I can't believe that. Similarly, Trey Lance over 6.5 at plus money is wild too.
I'm only 12 hours from Colorado. Are these up in Colorado?
They are up in Colorado.
Okay.
Nice.
And in Colorado, they get to stay up until the actual day of the draft too.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Well, that's good info for anybody who's stuck it out.
That's cool.
Just drive. It's not like we haven't known someone to drive up to Colorado to bet.
Yeah. Who's your pro team? Are you a Raiders guy?
I'm a Boston guy, so Patriots.
Who do you want to pay? What are you going to be secretly cheering for if the Patriots do at 15? And what will you be secretly very upset about?
To be completely honest, as a Patriots fan, I stopped caring, because every time they do something that I think is good, the guy's a bust, and every time they take a guy I've never heard of, that's the next star. So you just gotta let Belichick do his thing and see what happens in like 4 years.
That's fair.
That's okay.
It's boring for draft day, but
did you put a prop up about will the Patriots trade out of the 15th pick?
Like, they do well in free agency and trading. Like, the draft is an afterthought for Billy. Put a dog in charge of it.
What was the Patriots special prop? Let me find it.
I believe I just did offense or defense.
Yeah.
Okay. You didn't think of putting up will the Patriots trade out of the 15th pick?
No, I didn't want to do any type of trade props or anything like that. I think it's a little too confusing.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It feels like they'll trade one way or the other. Who knows?
Yeah.
You won't secretly be disappointed if they end up with Lance or Jones?
I don't know. I really don't have an opinion. I would like for them to get a quarterback that they can try to grow with, like, other than Cam Newton, but I'm not, like I said, I'm not a scout. I don't know if these guys are going to be any good.
Okay.
Bill figured out. That's how
I hope they land. I've convinced myself, and again, this is optimistic thinking. I've convinced myself that Trey Lance falls to them at 15, and that Mac Jones falls to the Bears at 20, and then we all get to have good laughs about both of those picks in the next 5 years. It'll be good
for sure.
I think there's a good chance one of them falls out of the top 10.
Yeah, I think so too. I would like Jones. I don't wish anyone ill will, but I would like Jones to fall to the Bears at 20, because there was a lot of people that were beating their chests about having a Jones under 19.5 when limits were like $50 at the offshores, and they're like, yes, I had bet Jones under 19.5.
You could read that every time you move
3.5, and it's like, you bet $50. Good, congratulations. Like,
you could bet 100 if you had low vig too.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
And
that's a good point.
They kept moving it too. It went from like 18 or 19 to 18 to 17. It just
I saw. Yeah, that one went the whole way. Yeah, so, but there was there were no rebets, so that was all. Rebets. Different people, $50 at a time.
Yeah, $50 at a time. Making rent the hard way.
Yep, that's right.
So,
yeah,
all right.
Yep. All right, good deal.
Again, awesome. Thanks for your time, man.
Oh, I forgot. I had one more quick question.
All right. You're running over the 8 o'clock.
Is there someone that did especially well last year during the draft, like a player that you have in the index that you're like, he hasn't shown up to put his action in yet. Like, we're a little concerned. What's going to happen when this guy shows up?
Not exactly. Like I said, I wasn't even in the back room at this point last year. And I know that we've already written a lot more than we wrote all of last year.
Yes.
So,
yes.
So yeah, there's no one that we're exactly waiting for or worried about popping in, but I definitely expect a lot of action in the next week.
Cool.
I love it, man. All right. Well, best of luck. Thanks for your time. It was great to get to meet you and hear a little bit about the process. I learned some stuff today.
Yeah.
I'll drop you a note and see how things went for the book. And again, congratulations and thanks to Circa for really making all this happen, because I have no idea if we were actually ever going to see more than just, the standard 8 props, low limits, if somebody hadn't waded into the water and really kind of accelerated the process. So appreciate you guys doing this.
For sure. Hopefully it kind of changes the market going forward.
Oh, I love it. This should be an event like the Super Bowl props. Why not? I don't understand.
Well, next year the draft is going to be in Vegas, so I think everyone's going to have a a lot of pressure to boost.
Okay, so you guys have gotten very valuable experience then, because next year it is going to be an event,
and it'll be a little more open.
Yeah, and we'll be there.
Hopefully the Palms might even open their restaurants.
we'll be there. We'll be there, and I'll use one of my Circa vouchers and buy you a drink. That'll be fun.
Awesome. Sounds good.
Right.
Thanks for having me on.
Take care, man.
Yeah, take care, guys.
We kind of have to go to the draft, don't we now?
I'll be there next year.
Like, I don't want to actually be in the room booing Goodell.
No, I want to be at Circa. I want to be at Circa Stadium.
It'll be 100%. Too cold for the pool.
I'm definitely going in. I want to be at Circa Stadium.
Although there's been many March Madness where I've been
Stadium swim.
Yeah. Diet starts today.